Hurricane Ian makes landfall in Florida. Next at 4, we take a live look at the devastation left in its wake and tracking what happens next. A shooting in Fells Point leaves a man fighting for his life. Fox 45 News looks back at recent violence in high-profile areas and questions what's being done to keep people safe ahead of a Fells Point festival. Baltimore City officials' travel expenses under criticism. Fox 45 News examines how much of your tax dollars have been spent on trips this year and if it's worth it.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
We need everyone to heed the warnings of their local officials before, during, and after this storm. These are life-saving messages that simply cannot be ignored.
Fortunately, it's too late to get out now. We are tracking Hurricane Ian as this dangerous storm slams the Florida coast. Good afternoon. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. We have live team coverage with meteorologist Amy Aronson monitoring conditions and Maxine Stryker watching for images coming into the newsroom. First, let's check in with Stephen Quinn from our Sinclair sister station, who joins us live from Sarasota right now. Stephen, what's happening there, and are you safe?
We are certainly that, but what I can tell you is that this area right now is getting battered by those outer bands from this hurricane, which made landfall a short time ago, about 50 miles to our south. I'll let you see what it looks like right now as these winds are coming through here. Just within the last 20 minutes, the National Weather Service issued an extreme wind warning for this area right now. The storm did not make landfall here, but its impact is about to be felt as we get the back end of that eye wall potentially, or at least our closest point to it here in Sarasota County. About 2 hours ago, sustained winds here were already at 45 miles an hour. That was enough for county officials here to make the call to pull all emergency vehicles off the road. If something happens tonight, you are indeed on your own. That is why those evacuation orders were so crucial and made with such emphasis over the course of these last 2 days. We do have power here right now where we are. It is certainly a different story to our south in areas like Fort Myers and Port Charlotte, which are seeing the brunt of this storm as it makes landfall. One final note I should add is that shelters have been open. Many of the public schools here in Sarasota County converted into shelters. They say they're at about 15% capacity. Now, what does that mean? Are many people staying home? We've seen some of those along the barrier islands in Longboat Key, and others feeling safe that they avoided landfall. But again, the impacts are expected to be significant here. Conditions will deteriorate in the next coming hours.
All right, Stephen Quinn reporting there live for us. Fortunately for us, Ian will be much calmer when it moves up the coast into the mid-Atlantic region, but it is going to impact our weekend.
That's right. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is monitoring Ian's track. And Amy, for where it is now, this is a monster storm.
A monster of a storm, and it did make landfall officially at 3:05 p.m. in Cayo Costa, Florida, with max sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. You can see the images behind me now. Just a beast of a storm as it continues to make landfall. And I do have a look at some of the stats for you. I have a look at the wind speeds plus how much rain has already fallen. So if we take a look at the radar right now, you can see it is still a very powerful Category 4 storm, producing max sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. Now, eventually this storm is going to weaken, but it's going to take some time. So if we take a look at what's happening, if we switch back over to Links 1, we should be able to see what's happening here. Here's a look at the rain that's already fallen. You'll notice we have a flash flood warning for the Sarasota area. That's the area that's already gotten hit hardest, with about 9 inches of rain in some locations. Plus, we've got that storm surge underway right now. That's all the water getting shoved right up against the coast. Plus, we've got winds to go along with it. Here's a look at some of the reported winds. You can see I've got one mark there, 84 miles an hour, but I have seen reports topping 100 miles an hour. So you can combine that with all the water coming on shore and just a very dangerous, catastrophic situation. If you take a look at the list of the top 5 strongest landfalling U.S. hurricanes, based on wind speed alone, you'll notice Hurricane Ian makes the list. So Labor Day hurricane back in 1935, winds up to 185 miles an hour. It goes down from there. Hurricane Michael was the last to impact Florida in 2018 with 155 mile per hour winds. And then here comes Hurricane Ian today with that landfall of sustained winds at 150 miles an hour. Now, coming up in just about 20 minutes, I will show you an updated track. I'll let you know exactly how long it's going to continue to impact Florida and what it eventually means for us here in Maryland. But right now, we're actually going to head over to Maxine Stryker, who's monitoring social media. What are you seeing, Maxine? Lots of incredible images.
Lots of really incredible images of that flooding and those strong winds. Let's take a look at what's coming in on Twitter here. This says first-person view of storm surge. The camera 6 feet off the ground. This is in Fort Myers Beach, Florida. They say they're not sure how much longer this camera will keep working, but you can see how powerful that water is, that storm surge coming in, and that's really the biggest concern right now. Is all of this water and flooding. This video here coming in from Naples, it said it looks like a river. You can see the water covering so many cars through here to the roofs. Extremely, extremely dangerous. Another video coming in here from Fort Myers, just as they were preparing for Hurricane Ian to make landfall. Absolutely incredible. These are waves lapping onto the shore here. You can see that building is almost covered, and here's a look at just how strong those winds are. Let's take a look at one more. This video here from Matt Tillman of Bayshore Boulevard. This is in Tampa as the hurricane heads up that way. You can see all of the water here was sucked out of Tampa Bay. Really an incredible image to see there along Bayshore Boulevard. No water left in there because the winds were so powerful that they sucked it all out. Eventually, it will come back in. But those are just some of the images that are coming in right now. We're going to continue to monitor social media throughout the newscast and bring you more of what we're seeing. Mary?
So much to look at. Thank you, Maxine. Put the power of the Weather Authority Storm Center in your hands. Download the free WBFF Weather Authority app to your smartphone and use our powerful Doppler radar to follow storms right down to your street. Just go to the App Store, search WBFF to get started.
In a city in crisis right now, a man is fighting for his life and a woman is recovering after police say they were shot in the heart of Fells Point early this morning.
And that's where Alexa Ashwell is live now with what we know about this shooting. Alexa?
Hi, Mary. Just hours ago, police confirmed this man is in grave condition at an area hospital. Police say both he and a woman were shot here on South Broadway, which is lined with shops and restaurants. In fact, here we see one of the bullet holes in one of the stores here. What investigators haven't said is what they believe led up to this shooting, a motive in the crime. It's the latest violence to unfold here in Fells Point and comes just days ahead of the big festival.
A blood-stained sidewalk and a bullet hole.
So the bullet hole is right here. I noticed that when I first came in.
Remnants of a double shooting here on South Broadway Street near Alisana Street in Fells Point. This cell phone video capturing people and medics surrounding at least one of the victims. Baltimore police say officers were called here around 1 Wednesday morning after reports of a shooting. And at the scene, they found a man who had been shot in the head and a 35-year-old woman who had been shot in the arm. The department not yet releasing a motive in the crime. The unanswered questions even more unnerving to people like Jessica, who discovered the bullet hole in the front door where she works.
Yeah, it's really sad and scary, you know.
And also calls this area home.
And it's been a lot going on as far as like violence in this area.
Just last year, surveillance video from this same area captured people running for their lives as someone fired 24 gunshots from Alisana Street. And already this year, at least 6 people have been shot in Fells Point, some of those victims killed, including La Scala restaurant general manager Chesley Patterson and Rodos bouncer husband and father Marco Nunez. Arrests were made in both of those cases. Still, the violence troubling.
You know, it starts to bother you after a while being in this neighborhood, and you can't walk out your door without anger or violence.
And comes just days before the Fells Point Fun Festival, an annual event that brings hundreds of people to the area. Fox 45 News questioning police about security plans. A spokesperson saying there will be added foot and bike patrols, as well as members of SWAT present. An added presence, people hope, will prompt change.
And hopefully it gets better, you know, so I can wish for it.
Now, you'll notice the gates here in Fells Point's Broadway Square. Police have been putting these up throughout the summer to close the square early in response to the violence over the summer. They're already up ahead of the festival. As for this shooting, police have not released any suspect information. No arrests have been made. Reporting live in Fells Point, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Baltimore's violence is on the minds right now of some members of the Baltimore City Council. In fact, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is at City Hall right now, where the Baltimore Police Department was in the hot seat. And what was the discussion about, Mackenzie?
Yeah, Kai, it was for the Baltimore City Committee on Public Safety and Government Ops, and really the conversation centering around what Baltimore police can do right now to curb some of this violence. Now, the police commissioner, Michael Harrison, was not here. Instead, a deputy commissioner was fielding some of the questions, and really the conversation drilling down on what we continue to see happen in pockets all across the city, this rise in violence. The chairman of the committee, Councilman Mark Conway, really asking the police commissioner, the deputy commissioner in the department, about what he says is more of a reactionary response to this crime and what needs to be done to get a grip on the violence.
We're always behind the ball. We're playing whack-a-mole.
If the area that they're in doesn't have something, and then something happens over in Bowley's or the Chum, they'll move from there to there, but they could have prevented whatever was in that area.
Well, Mackenzie, did the Baltimore City Council talk to the police department about the summer crime plan?
Yeah, that was part of the conversation, right? We looked at a presentation that the deputy commissioner gave to these council members. He says that there were some aspects of success. Running through some of the numbers and the data, we learned that 560 warrants were served over the summer, including 15 for homicide suspects and 18 for non-fatal shooting suspects. But really the conversation centered around what can be done, what more can be done. The Baltimore Police Department comes back to the fact that they continue to struggle with staffing. We've heard this issue come up time and time again. After the hearing, I questioned the chairman, Councilman Mark Conway, about what his thoughts were, what more needs to be done, and what's not working in Baltimore City. And we'll find out what the mayor's office is saying about the summer crime plan and what's next. That's coming up at 5. But for now, live inside City Hall, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
All right, Mackenzie, thank you. And who do you trust to deal with crime in Baltimore? The city council, the mayor, or both, or neither? So far, 100% of those who voted and responded say neither. We want to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab to weigh in. We'll check back in with the results throughout the night.
High-priced travel expenses for city officials coming under fire after a trip to England is approved for one of Nick Mosby's top aides. But that is far from the only faraway conference costing taxpayers over the last year. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor breaking down just how big that bill has grown. Rebecca?
Yeah, Mary, whether it's out of the state or even out of the country, the city's travel expenses are adding up for taxpayers. This year alone, we've already totaled more than $140,000 worth of spending. Some of the more costly trips include $62,000 for police training course in Boston and $33,000 for a Parks and Rec convention in Arizona. Around $40,000 was also spent for city council members to attend conferences in both Las Vegas and Ocean City. And lastly, as we already mentioned, $10,000 was recently approved for the city council president's chief of staff to attend a certification program in England. Taxpayer Protection Alliance President David Williams is questioning if any of it is fiscally responsible.
This spending is not needed. You don't need to spend, tens of thousands of dollars for training. You don't need to send, 10 or 15 people to a conference when 1 or 2 people will suffice, or you can do it via Zoom or Skype.
Now, Williams adds that trip to England was particularly frivolous in his opinion, and beyond just being costly, its approval might have also broken city guidelines. I'll have more on that coming up tonight at 5. But for now, reporting live in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Hurricane Ian could take a toll on both the Florida coast and the country's economy. What the president is doing to try and mitigate the damage.
Border politics. How big of a role will they play in these fast approaching midterm elections? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a look coming up.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Do not, let me repeat, do not use this as an excuse to raise gasoline prices or gouge the American people. If gas companies try to use this storm to raise prices at the pump, I will ask officials to look into whether price gouging is going on.
President Biden is warning oil companies not to gouge prices as Hurricane Ian comes ashore. You're taking a live look at the Sunshine State in Tampa on the right.
And on the left, a shot of Naples as this massive storm batters the Florida coast. In just a moment, we're going to take a look at where the storm is headed and how it could affect the economy moving forward. Well, we are just 6 weeks away from the all-important midterm elections that will decide who has control of Congress for the next 2 years.
Well, one issue certain to have some effect and where Democrats and Republicans greatly differ is immigration. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman shows us the latest on border politics.
Lines seemingly without end as customs agents process a record number of undocumented immigrants seeking a new life. Though in new polling, only 7% of voters list immigration their top priority. 50% say President Biden should be doing more. Republicans believe immigration failures will ensure their success this November.
You have a vice president who believes the border secure but won't visit it but one time, a president who ignores the problems. 50 people go to Martha Vineyards and now they're up in arms, but they won't do anything about the problem.
One Texas Democrat told the National Desk the White House, which has declared the border secure, is quiet on immigration for a reason.
When was the last time that you actually saw people being returned or deported? I think there's a conscious effort not to show any images of people going back because they don't want to excite the immigration activists.
Which could cost votes, just as it may have hurt Republicans when President Trump's team was accused of inhumane conditions and separating families as a form of punishment. Regardless, Republican leadership saying they want to be seen as tougher in other ways at the border.
Those policies work, whether it was the investment in building the border wall, whether it was fully supporting our Border Patrol, or whether it was ending catch and release.
But Republican leaders telling me they need to win back both the House and Senate if they're to really alter any major immigration policies. And right now, that's still very much up in the air.
I believe we will win the United States Senate. I believe we will send to Joe Biden's desk legislation to secure the border. If he vetoes it, he is woefully out of touch with the vast majority of the American people.
A Washington Post poll shows neither party holds a distinct advantage on the issue of immigration, just as voters are also split on which party they trust to handle the country's most pressing problems. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Well, taking a live look along the Florida coast as Hurricane Ian drops feet of rain on those living there.
The rain combined with the winds really creating dangerous, potentially deadly conditions. Let's check in with meteorologist Amy Aronson for the latest.
Yeah, really scary situation unfolding there. Made landfall just at 3:05, and it hasn't weakened much. Updated winds still at 145 miles an hour. Now, we know once it moves on land, eventually it will lose some of that strength, but it's going to take a minute. And if you take a look at the storm right now, sure enough, you see how strong it is. Currently pushing its way inland right now, bringing all the water along with it, producing the max sustained winds at 145 miles an hour, traveling north-northeastward at 9 miles an hour. So as it slowly moves onshore, we get all that water getting shoved up against the shore. That's that dangerous storm surge that we keep showing you. You can visualize it. It's all the water flowing in at a very rapid pace, and that's what's leading to that very dangerous flooding. On top of that, a lot of rain is falling. Actually, in the bullseye here, 10 to 15 inches, not only for the coast where it's making landfall, but even as it travels northeastward across the state. Areas like Orlando, central parts of the state are also going to pick up that rain. And here's a look at that peak storm surge forecast that's underway as we speak. The area highlighted in yellow or in purple, just south of Tampa, that's the area at greatest risk. Over a foot of storm surge there. That's all the water piling up along the coast, and that's what's causing the damage as we speak. Latest track from the National Hurricane Center eventually shows it weakening as it moves across central parts of the state, but it takes it time. Doesn't get offshore again until late Thursday. And after that, it heads towards the southeast, actually as a tropical storm in the Carolinas. And then it will continue to weaken and fall apart and become a remnant low by the time it travels northward and heads our direction. But eventually we'll see some of the impacts from this system. If we take a look at the latest forecast model for when the rain arrives here, first, of course, it continues to impact Florida. Then it heads towards the southeast as we get into Friday. That means we stay dry for tonight, tomorrow, and actually most of the day on Friday. It's not until Saturday that we'll see the first rain showers from this system, from this remnant system by the time it reaches us. We see them by 11 a.m. on Saturday, and then I think Saturday, complete washout. But for us, we're not looking at a severe weather threat. We're just looking at that steady rain pretty much all day Saturday and then lingering into Sunday. Sunday morning starts off with some scattered showers, and we're expecting them to be ongoing through Sunday afternoon. So here's a look at what we're expecting locally. Looks like the highest amounts will be just south and east of here across the bay to the eastern shore. Actually, some flooding possible there, locally around 2 to 3 inches. Doesn't look great for the Ravens game come Sunday since we are tracking the scattered showers. Looks like this whole system will finally wrap out of here by early next week. And after that, it's even cooler with highs in the 60s. Mary?
Amy, thank you. A suspected drunk driver plows through barriers outside a Baltimore restaurant. Why incidents like this have restaurants rethinking outdoor seating?
Effects of Hurricane Ian felt across the country. I'm Atra El-Nashar with how experts say it could impact already fragile supply chains.
A live look at Florida right now as Hurricane Ian batters the coast. And while this storm will leave a lasting impact on Florida, the economic impact of Hurricane Ian already felt across the country as well. Major ports, airports, and distribution sites are now shut down. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has the latest on what Americans are facing and what could be ahead.
An economic 1-2 punch this week as Wall Street takes a plunge. About $9 trillion wiped from the stock market since the beginning of the year, the wealthiest 10% taking the vast majority of those losses. Also plunging, mortgage applications down as the average 30-year fixed-rate mortgage crosses the 7% mark this week, up more than 3 points from the beginning of the year. And at the gas pump.
The gas is already high, and it's going to go higher.
Prices slowly ticking up, the national average rising 8 cents in the past week. Hurricane Ian shutting down some oil production off the Gulf Coast. President Biden insists it shouldn't impact drivers.
Only about 190,000 barrels a day has been impacted by the storm thus far. That's less than 2% of the United States daily production impacted for a very short period of time.
Supply chain expert Dr. Hakan Hekimoğlu says as long as no more production shuts down, gas prices shouldn't spike. But there are guaranteed shocks to other supply chains in the storm's path, especially in Port Tampa Bay and the I-4 corridor to Orlando.
It's a corridor that is hosting a lot of distribution centers, fulfillment centers, warehouses. So it goes beyond manufacturing.
As critical as the recovery stages for supply chains, what happens before the storm is also key, which is why Ian may be especially devastating for commerce. It intensified so quickly, many facilities didn't have time to prepare. For farmers, mitigation options are limited. Damage to Florida's citrus crops, even cotton crops in neighboring Georgia, could be felt across the country.
I would say it is reasonable to expect a cut in the supply.
The top priority now is saving lives. The scope of damage may not be fully realized for days or weeks to come. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
Project Baltimore uncovered a truancy problem in Baltimore City schools, why that problem may go beyond city limits. And the child tax credit expired, but there's a new push to bring it back, how Democrats are working to get payments through Congress.
We're tracking Hurricane Ian. This massive storm just made landfall a little more than an hour ago.
That's right. We're going to check in with meteorologist Amy Aronson with the very latest on the storm's path. Amy.
Yeah, they are in the worst of it right now. Hasn't weakened much, still producing max sustained winds of 145 miles an hour after making landfall at 3:05 p.m. in Cayo Costa, Florida. We're still watching this system as this Category 4 storm slowly moves its way onshore to Florida. As that happens, it's going to lose its fuel. So eventually it's going to lose that warm ocean water that's fueling it and strengthening it, and we should start to see it fall apart. But before that happens, of course, the devastating impacts will continue. Not only are they dealing with dangerous storm surge right now, that's all that ocean water getting shoved up against the shoreline, resulting in very dangerous flooding. They're also dealing with very heavy rain falling, plus the winds. I just saw wind speeds being reported up to 100 miles per hour plus in some spots. If you take a look at some rain reports that are coming in, these are just radar estimates, close to 10 inches near Venice. They do have that flash flood warning out. That's that little red box you're seeing there for the Sarasota area. Plus the winds. I could only find a few reports coming in officially here showing 80, 85 miles an hour, but we know we are seeing hurricane force winds in some spots as this system comes on shore. And here's a look at its ranking again. It's actually a tie, so I just made a quick little update here. Some of the records a little fuzzy, but it looks like Ian ties for number 5 for all the storms. If we look back at all the different storms in terms of wind speed, with max sustained winds of 150 miles per hour at its landfall. Now, coming up in about 20 minutes, I've got an updated look at the track of the system, and I'll let you know exactly what Ian eventually means for us right here in Maryland. Now let's actually head over to Maxine Stryker, who's monitoring social media. What are you seeing, Maxine? Just lots and lots of images of all that water coming on shore.
Yeah, mostly images of water. There are some images of the powerful wind as well, but as Amy mentioned, that water, the flooding, the storm surge is really the biggest threat that we're seeing here. Let's take a look at some of these images. This here coming in from Naples Fire Rescue Department. They're sharing this video here. You can see in the corner of your screen a small fire on the side of the road. Fire officials warning everybody to, hunker down and stay off the roads. This video here coming in from Fort Myers. We're seeing a lot come in from that Fort Myers area, as that's where the hurricane is at the moment. And you can see this parking lot down here just completely underwater. Any cars down there completely submerged. And you can see just how powerful the winds are in that video as well. Let's take a look at this one here. This says video circulating shows houses floating off their foundations in Fort Myers Beach. Hopefully everyone there has evacuated, because you can see that the water is almost close to reaching the roofs of these homes. And as this mentioned, some of them even starting to float away. You can see a lot of debris there in the water. Let's take a look at one more. This says Naples literally looks like a river, and yes, it does. You can see all of that water flowing down the street there, almost to the top of those cars. We're going to continue to monitor social media and the different images coming in, and check back in with you in about a half hour.
Unfortunately, we're probably going to have to cut it short this year, because unfortunately it's just not safe anymore to have people sit outside.
Well, a Baltimore restaurant is forced to end its outdoor dining season early after a suspected drunk driver barrels into barriers outside the restaurant. Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live in Baltimore Station North neighborhood now with the very latest. This is scary for them, Amy.
Absolutely, Mary, and you can actually still see some of the damage here outside of Foraged Eatery. The restaurant tells me it's just thankful that nobody was here eating when it happened. It's not the wake-up Chris Amendola expected Saturday morning.
One of my guys, my morning guys, actually was the first to text me in the morning to send me some pictures.
A shocking look at the dining setup outside of his restaurant. Forage.
The pictures that he sent me didn't look too bad, but then I got here and it was crazy. I mean, we've cleaned a lot of it up now.
Located just north of Penn Station.
There was like dirt everywhere and there was plants everywhere, and it was wild.
Even today, several days later, the destruction is still evident. The restaurant suspects a drunk driver barreled through these barriers, intended to protect diners from traffic along North Charles Street.
If anything, it's good to see that those barriers, did what they were supposed to do and protected the tables.
Amendola says the barriers were set up by the neighborhood's Central Baltimore Partnership, a way to increase seating capacity and facilitate outdoor dining during the pandemic.
I know they're pretty upset as well. I heard this is like the second time this has happened on this street.
But destruction like this is sadly not new. In the early days of the pandemic in October 2020.
I looked at our cameras immediately and just could see the destruction.
This driver drove straight through the outdoor seating at Federal Hills Sobo Cafe. And a month later,
a security camera captures the moment that a car, look at that.
Another destructive driver caught on camera at Fed Hills Blue Agave, a reminder of the potential dangers of restaurant parklets set up near the road.
It's really about the drunk drivers. You know, somebody late night drinking and driving. So I think that's more of the issue than really anything.
Meanwhile, Foraged says its 2022 outdoor dining season is likely over, but hopes to replace the barriers, maybe in time for spring.
I hope so, so we can continue outside dining. I know guests really love that.
Well, and tonight, Baltimore police have yet to share any information about any arrests or even a possible suspect vehicle who may have been responsible for this incident over the weekend. Meanwhile, up on FOX baltimore.com, we've linked you to a fundraising campaign so that this neighborhood can replace these barriers. Reporting live in Baltimore, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, we're talking about the issue of term limits. Baltimore's elected leaders without term limits can serve until they are voted out of office or leave, but there's now a growing number of supporters for term limits. Baltimore voters will have a chance to decide the future of the city's politicians with the ballot measure this November. Giovanni Patterson, chairman of the People for Elected Accountability, joined the morning show today to discuss why he's pushing for change.
This is really just about, good government. We want to, encourage more civic engagement. I mean, that is the CE in the PEACE acronym, encouraging that civic engagement. And with term limits, we encourage a healthy turnover of elected officials, and we prevent these political statues that can take place in office.
Well, the ballot measure would prevent any elected leader from holding the same office for more than 8 years during any 12-year period. And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you support term limits for Baltimore City elected leaders? So far, 96% of those who voted say yes. You can go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Now, we do need to disclose Sinclair's executive chairman, David Smith, did financially support the petition drive to get the issue of term limits on the ballot. Sinclair is the parent company of Fox 45.
Fewer and fewer students are attending public schools in Maryland on a regular basis. Alarming new data shows attendance is down and chronic absenteeism is up, especially in one local school system. In 2019, 19% of students statewide were considered chronically absent. By 2021, it jumped to 22%. And the school system in the Baltimore region seeing the largest increase in Baltimore County. It's not just a barrier to students learning, it also can be illegal. Baltimore County State's Attorney Scott Schellenberger says his office has seen an increase in truancy cases.
No, there is no easy solution. We don't like prosecuting. Judges don't like putting in jail. And even if you do put in jail, the hammer is not very big. And in fact, it is not much of an incentive at all when it comes to sending the kids to school.
Tonight at 10, Project Baltimore investigates why Baltimore County is seeing a spike in chronic absenteeism and what the school system is doing about it. Now making headlines, President Biden promises to take another crack at expanding the child tax credit by making it permanent.
You got to do it. We tried. We couldn't get it done the first time. We'll get it done this time.
Congress expanded the credit last year by authorizing monthly payments in the COVID relief law. It's been credited with reducing poverty and hunger, but the payments ended in December, and many lawmakers worry about the costs of extending it. A recent Wall Street Journal report shows the IRS failed to send payments to millions of eligible households across the U.S., instead sending it to many who were not eligible.
Notre Dame of Maryland University is working to address the teacher shortage across the state. The university was awarded a grant of $169 million from the Maryland Leads Initiative to offer free tuition and additional funding to prospective teachers. This will allow Notre Dame to support these teachers who enrolled in the School of Education's Accelerated Certification in Teaching and the Education Liberal Studies program for bachelor's arts degree. Well, both programs are designed to prepare students with non-teaching degrees for teaching careers. Well, the Maryland Public Service Commission dialed up a big announcement today. 227 will soon, or excuse me, 227 will soon be a area code for the state. It will serve in the same geographic area as Maryland, the 240 and 301 area codes, which serve Allegheny, Charles, Garrett, Montgomery, Prince George's, St. Mary's, and Washington County residents. Once all 240 and 301 phone numbers are exhausted, the state will begin issuing numbers with the new 227 area code.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5, violence continues to flare up after a shooting in Fells Point. How police plan to beef up security just days before the annual Fells Point Fun Festival.
Teens are texting for help. I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. The number teens are calling when they are in crisis, the 3 digits that you may have heard a lot about recently.
This is a live look at Hurricane Ian as it slams into the Florida coast. The storm surge is already damaging areas that it's hitting. Millions of people are now under evacuation orders. In a moment, meteorologist Amy Aronson will break down what's happening in the south and how that storm could affect you this weekend. A health alert for you right now. A new national mental health hotline is live. 988 began taking all calls as depression and anxiety rose during the pandemic. The national desk, Angela Brown, reports more people are calling to get help.
You have reached the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
988 now live and taking calls to save lives just by pressing 3 simple digits.
Heartland Counseling Crisis Support. How can I help you?
And more people are calling for help. HHS says they compared the data for the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in August of 2022 to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline in August of 2021. The 988 Lifeline answered 152,000 more contacts. We're talking calls, chats, and text messages compared to August of 2021, connecting a live person with someone in crisis.
They listen actively, they provide support, they'll help stabilize whatever that crisis situation is, de-escalate that particular concern that the caller, texter, or chatter has, and then importantly, we'll provide resources and linkage for ongoing care.
Sinclair reporters across the country tracking call volume. In Iowa, some staff seeing twice as many calls since the launch.
The first probably 5 days, we averaged about twice as many calls on the Lifeline as we normally have.
While in South Carolina, 988 calls go to Mental Health America in Greenville County.
Our volume has increased 101%, so it's doubled our call volume.
988 coming at a critical time, especially for young people. The CDC reporting 37% of high school students experienced poor mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic. And texting for help is a communication channel seeing the most growth.
For text and chat, the vast majority of those individuals who use those communication channels are younger, under the age of 25, and they tend to be in more acute crisis.
Another encouraging sign, Health and Human Services is also reporting wait times are down. The average speed to answer a text or a call is down from 2.5 minutes to 42 seconds. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
More than 10 million pounds of fentanyl pills are now off the streets. From May through September this year, the Department of Justice took them, along with about 980 pounds of fentanyl powder. The U.S. Attorney General warns fentanyl comes in many forms, from a bright-colored candy look to fake pills that look real. Now, this move to get rid of fentanyl in communities is part of the One Pill Can Kill initiative.
Make sure your loved ones know that they should not take anything that they are not prescribed, that they should not take a pill from a friend, and that they should not take a pill that they can buy on social media, because even one pill can kill.
The Department of Justice says, and I want you to listen to this number, more than 107,000 Americans died from drug poisoning or overdose. Well, we are keeping you up to date right now as Hurricane Ian starts to batter the Florida coast and starts moving north. Meteorologist Amy Aronson joins us now with more. Amy?
Yeah, I just saw some clips, Kai, of houses actually floating away, and that was in the Naples area. So impacts underway right now. Just a devastating situation there as that storm continues to move onshore. If I put this radar into motion, you can see it's still a monster of a storm, still holding on to that eye. You can see it very clearly here as it moves onto land. Typically what happens with these systems is once they move away from the warm waters, they start to lose their fuel or that strength, and that's eventually going to happen. Right now, hasn't lost much of it, still producing max sustained winds of 145 miles an hour. I actually just saw a wind report up to 123 miles an hour in Punta Gorda, Florida. So this storm is still a beast of a storm. Not only are we still tracking the strong winds, we're also still tracking the rain that's coming down, plus the threat for storm surge. 10 to 15 inches across central parts of Florida, not only along the coast where it's making landfall, but even as it heads towards Orlando. Central parts of the state still expecting flooding to get underway there. And then here's a look at that peak storm surge that's actually underway right now. 12 to 18 feet for the area highlighted in purple there. Very dangerous, catastrophic situation with all that water just getting shoved up against the shoreline at a very rapid pace. Latest track from the National Hurricane Center shows this storm eventually weakening as it moves over central parts of the state. Eventually it moves offshore, but that doesn't happen until Thursday evening. After that, it curves back in towards the southeast as a tropical storm. That means tropical impacts also expected there, and then it will finally weaken and become a remnant low before it reaches us right here in Maryland by the weekend. So here's a look at the system right now on our weather map. Still quite a distance from us. That means we still have some time before it gets here. But once it gets here, it's actually going to send us some rainfall, and that rain's going to last much of the weekend. So I did break down the impacts for you here. Rain's expected to arrive on Saturday by the end of the morning. We are tracking steady rain at times for us, up to 2 inches in some spots. Fortunately, it looks like that severe weather threat will remain low for us, and it's just going to be a pure rain event. But first, that storm has to cross over Florida. That's where most of the impacts will be felt. Then the tropical rain moves into the southeast. It will continue to weaken, and here come the showers for us, pushing in from the south by 11 a.m. on Saturday and then continuing all day. Here's all that green moving through Maryland. That will continue through Saturday night, actually lingering into Sunday morning, and then plan on and off showers throughout the day on Sunday. So here's a look at what we can expect here in Maryland from Ian. Looks like the heaviest rain will come through on Saturday. Certainly going to keep us cool this weekend with temperatures in the upper 60s. Plan on and off showers on Sunday. And yes, that will have an impact on the Ravens game. Not going to be pretty at M&T Bank Stadium. And then on Monday, we're left behind with still some lingering showers and temperatures still in the cool mid-60s. Now, in just a couple of minutes, we'll take a look ahead at your full 7-day forecast, and I'll let you know exactly when Ian will clear us here in Maryland completely. Kyle.
Amy, thank you. Coming up at 5 o'clock, tens of thousands of dollars spent on trips around the world. Why some are sounding the alarm in spending from Baltimore City government. First, it's time to decorate your home for Halloween. Fox 45 News heads out to Weber's Farm to pick that perfect pumpkin. Trending right now, fall has arrived in Baltimore and Halloween is just a month away. Mark Clark went to Weber's Farm this morning to talk about picking the perfect pumpkin.
And we're at Weber's Farm, and of course it is Weber Farm season. The pumpkins, the apples, the apple ciders, and of course Jake Weber, the man, is with us. And so Jake, obviously we got the pumpkins going on. This is pumpkin time, right?
Oh, it sure is. We have lots of great pumpkins already. We'll be getting a lot more. We're here in our pumpkin palace where we have all different kind of pumpkins. We got these yellow guys, your big traditional pumpkins, Yeah, we call these the mystics or field trips. We have Cinderella pumpkins.
Ah.
And I don't even know the name of that one, but it is an ugly pumpkin.
I like this grandma. It's a grandma pumpkin.
And a lot of these you can cook. You get the seeds out of them and roast them when you carve them. It's a lot of wonderful things to do. These are the warty pumpkins. People really like those. Nice funky looking pumpkin there for your front porch.
And so, Jake, it's more than pumpkins, though. Of course, you got the apples, you got the apple cider, you got the hayrides, you got the maize, and of course, we can't forget the delicious donuts that everybody talks about and the slushies.
Yeah, the slushies, super popular, especially when it's a warm day. We sell a lot of apple cider slush. It is a great frozen drink. We sell a lot of hot cider, too, on cooler mornings like this morning.
And the donuts and everything else made
everyone
right here.
loves the donuts made here every day. Actually, this time of year we make them all day long. You don't have enough time to make them all.
Well, it's pumpkin time. It's pumpkin time. Fall has fallen. It's time to come out to Weber's Farm. Mark Clark, Fox 45 News.
And we are tracking Ian as that nears Maryland, unfortunately just in time for our weekend. Over the next 2 days, though, feels like fall. If you want to get your pumpkin, you've got time. Today or tomorrow, it looks fantastic over the next couple of days anyways. Up through Friday, we're rain-free, but then here comes the rain. This weekend, not going to be pretty at the pumpkin patch. We've got steady rain on Saturday. Saturday's a complete washout. I'd have indoor plants ready to go. By Sunday, more scattered showers. The rain wraps up by Monday, and then after that, it's nice and dry again by midweek next week. Mary Kai.
Amy, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, winds clocked at over 100 miles an hour. More than 1 million people already without power. The latest on Hurricane Ian. Coming up at 5, a crisis in the classroom. Hundreds of Baltimore City students are missing. We spoke with one local leader who showed frustration, saying more needs to be done to keep students in school.
Well, Hurricane Ian makes landfall in Florida next at 4. We're taking a lot. Actually, good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Coming up on Fox 45, the devastation from Hurricane Ian in Florida and where it's heading.
And we're going to be looking at violent crime in Fells Point ahead of the festival.
Also tonight, travel expenses from the Baltimore City Council. Why some say trips that the city council members have taken are unnecessary.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
We're following two big stories tonight. The first, Hurricane Ian makes landfall as we speak in Florida. The Category 4 storm is bringing winds of 150 miles per hour. That's sustained in storm surge of up to 18 feet and torrential rain. We're tracking the damage and the conditions.
And in a city in crisis, a double shooting in Fells Point. The latest on the investigation as we press leaders on progress stopping violent crime in the city.
We begin right now with live coverage of Hurricane Ian. This is a live shot at Sunshine Bridge in Tampa, Florida. Ian made landfall as a Category 4 storm, bringing winds of more than 150 miles an hour and rain.
Now, emergency crews are responding to the areas hit the hardest by the storm. The hurricane is bringing storm surges up to 18 feet, putting streets and coastal communities really underwater. The wind so strong, it is snapping power lines and taking down trees. We have team coverage on the hurricane tonight. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is tracking the storm and looking at how it could impact us.
But first, Maxine Stryker joins us from the studio right now with more on what's happening in Florida. Maxine?
So we're monitoring all of this incredible video right now that's coming in on social media as that hurricane makes landfall. Let's take a look at some of these videos here on Twitter. This video here from Wink News, the back of the parking lot there in Fort Myers, Florida. You can see that that parking lot is just submerged. It says flood panels are what you see in the bottom third of the frame. Surge conditions are going to continue to worsen in that area. And we're seeing a lot of video come in from Fort Myers. This here from our very own Megan Gillen, who is in Tampa right now. She says they're feeling strong wind gusts, torrential rain, and it's just picking up momentum as it heads that direction. She says her and photojournalist Nathan Aaron are taking shelter right now in their hotel. You can tell things are just about to start getting bad there in that area. This video here says sent by a viewer from a reporter at Wink News. You can see, look at that, how powerful that wind is. That roof just ripped off of that building there in Fort Myers, Florida. And this one here, a time lapse. Oh, there we go, of the storm surge coming in from Sanibel Island. Powerful winds, lots of water, and that's really what's going to be the threat here, as Amy will tell you in just a moment. We're going to continue to monitor all that's coming in here, and we'll have more for you coming up in just about a half hour.
Maxine, thank you. Meteorologist Amy Aronson here now with more. You know, Amy, oftentimes in these storms, we worry about a stall. This storm is booking, isn't it?
Moving north-northeast at 9 miles an hour. So, yeah, at least it's moving, but you can see all the water it's bringing in with it. And the water is really the big threat with this, the storm surge. We saw it in that clip that Maxine just showed us. It's getting shoved up very quickly, and that's what results in that rapid flooding, strong enough to actually float away homes in some locations. So a really scary situation there. And it's now producing max sustained winds at 140 miles an hour. So it is weakening. It's just taking some time, but it will continue to weaken as it moves onshore, but impacts will continue, especially along the coast there where that storm surge is underway, plus the heavy rain, plus the very strong winds. Here's a look at rainfall totals, just a radar estimate, but showing close to 12 inches already. Storm surge a problem, plus we've got these winds. I could only find a few reports here, 85 miles an hour, but I have seen some reports even higher than that, topping 100 miles an hour. And this actually ranks it as one of the top 5 strongest hurricanes based on wind speed to make landfall in the United States. We're actually tied for number 5 with this system. So Ian ties with a couple of storms, but max sustained winds at landfall were 150 miles per hour. And that landfall happened not long ago, actually at 3:05 p.m. today. Now, coming up in 20 minutes, we will take a look ahead at the updated track for Ian, and I'll let you know exactly what it means eventually for us right here in Maryland. Mary Kai.
Thank you, Amy. In a city in crisis right now, a man is fighting for his life, and a woman is recovering after they were shot in the heart of Fells Point. It happened early this morning.
And we have team coverage on the state of violent crime in our city, starting with Alexa Ashwell. She's live now with what we know about this shooting. Alexa?
Kai and Mary, just hours ago, police confirm a man is in grave condition at an area hospital. Police say both he and a woman were shot here on South Broadway, an area lined with shops and businesses, early this morning. In fact, we found one of the bullet holes in one of the stores. We can give you a closer look at that hole by taking a look at our video. Police say officers were called here around 1 this morning after reports of a shooting. And at the scene, they found a man who had been shot in the head and a 35-year-old woman who had been shot in the arm. We also saw cell phone video capturing people and medics surrounding at least one of those victims. Those who live and work in this area troubled by the violence. Take a listen.
It starts to bother you after a while being in this neighborhood, and you can't walk out your door without anger or violence.
It's very scary. I also live around the area, so and it's been a lot going on as far as violence in this area.
That woman mentioning the recent violence. At least 6 other people have been shot here in Fells Point so far this year. Some of those victims killed, including the Rodos bouncer, Marco Nunez, who was shot just around the corner from where we are right now. Mary, no arrests have been made in that case. I'm sorry, an arrest has been made in that case.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Alexa, you did mention the recent violence. The shooting comes just days before the annual Fells Point Fun Festival, of course. People getting excited about that, but have police said if they plan to increase security in that area?
Yes, that festival is this weekend. In fact, just a block from where we are right now is Broadway Square. We see the gates are still up. They've been out throughout the summer as a way to close Broadway Square early. That's an attempt to reduce the violence that we've seen here throughout the summer here in Fells Point. The annual festival does bring hundreds to the area, so I did question Baltimore Police about security plans for it. A spokesperson says there will be added foot and bike patrols as well as members of SWAT present for the event. Kai and Mary, as for this latest shooting, we checked. No suspect information has been released. No arrests have been made. Reporting live in Fells Point, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Right now, Baltimore's violence is on the minds of some members of the Baltimore City Council. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is at City Hall right now, where the Baltimore Police Department came under fire. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Kai, a lot of the members of the Baltimore City Council committee here today, they want to know what is being done from the Baltimore Police Department's perspective to get a grip on the violence. And they say what is standing in their way from curbing it. And what we're hearing from the department is that a lot of it comes down to staffing. The violence happening in the streets of Baltimore.
Good afternoon.
The topic inside City Hall.
Homicides and shootings hurt the victims who are injured and the families who are killed or injured.
Deputy Commissioner Richard Worley fielding questions, especially about the highly demanded summer crime plan.
Do we think it was successful?
Our numbers were up slightly, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a success.
Worley notes major events in the city this summer went smoothly, but the issue of staffing resurfacing time and time again. As the violence continues, more questions about what can be done to stop the trigger pullers before they commit a crime.
What we're doing about guns.
BPD says it's working closely with federal partners to track guns in the city, while somewhat touting homicides being one less than this time last year. Worley recognizing it's not good enough.
Because it's still 254 lives and 254 more citizens that we lost.
This hearing comes just months after some of the same council members stood in City Hall.
People are calling our offices crying out,
demanding BPD to step up and do more, calling the violence unacceptable.
We need foot patrol in these areas.
As 2022 continues to be on pace to surpass 300 homicides for the 8th straight year, we sent questions to Mayor Brandon Scott asking, would you consider BPD's summer deployment strategy a success? What is your plan for reducing violent crime moving forward? We saw some members of the City Council call for more help before the summer started. Why does it take members of the City Council to demand more and not you? So far, no answer from the mayor. Meanwhile, should those demands have come from the mayor?
Of course they should have come from the mayor. I will say, though, it's hard to say whether or not that conversation has been had already.
Would you describe the summer deployment strategy as a success?
I can't say that for my hearing today. I think there are parts of it, based on our conversation, that seem like they were successful. But I say by and large, across the city, we're not seeing the returns that we want to see.
BPD often touting the work being done to drive down organized crime, but the efforts from the city right now only focused in the Western Police District.
Other people are waiting, hey, when is it my turn to see this?
This isn't like giving out Christmas gifts. I want my gift, my Christmas gift. When will everyone get their gift of a perfectly safe neighborhood? I can't say. I would love for that to happen yesterday.
Conway says despite cooler temperatures on the horizon, there should be a crime plan in place for the rest of the year as well. Now, we did just get a statement from the mayor's office, not directly answering the questions we sent them, but the statement says that it's misguided to think that one group of people is more interested in curbing violence than others. The statement goes on to talk about specifically what was done during the summer deployment strategy, but again did not say whether the mayor himself thought the efforts were successful. Live inside City Hall, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Who do you trust to deal with crime in Baltimore? The city council, the mayor, or both, or neither? Well, so far, 100% of you who responded say neither. We'd like to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. We'll check in on these results throughout the night.
Well, high-priced travel expenses for city officials coming under fire last week when a trip to England was approved for one of Nick Mosby's top aides.
It's far from the only long-distance conference it's costing taxpayers from last year. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor is breaking down just how big that bill has grown. Rebecca?
Yeah, guys, whether it's out of the state or even out of the country, some are now questioning if all of these work trips are really worth the money.
From just up the road to across the pond, the bill for Baltimore City officials' out-of-town trips is adding up. Among the most expensive excursions, nearly $62,000 for a police training course in Boston and $33,000 for a Parks and Rec convention in Arizona. Taxpayer Protection Alliance President David Williams questioning if either was fiscally responsible.
You don't need to spend, tens of thousands of dollars for training. You don't need to send 10 or 15 people to a conference when 1 or 2 people will suffice, or you can do it via Zoom or Skype.
Another major cost to taxpayers, city council members attending an annual conference in Las Vegas, $18,000, and one in Ocean City for $21,000. City Council President Nick Mosby's OC trip alone totaling $3,000, more than double what everyone else paid.
That really shows just the kind of person that he is. He's the kind of person that wants to spend money and ask questions later.
And that's not all. Mosby's Chief of Staff Lawrence Anderson also taking a $10,000 trip to England for an executive certification program. Fox 45 pressing the council president if traveling overseas was really an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars.
Well, he's one out of 40 government officials throughout the world that was selected for an extremely a competitive program.
It just seems like he's taken advantage of Baltimore City taxpayers to either send himself or his staff on trips that people would love to go on.
And questions still remain as to why the England expense wasn't brought to the Board of Estimates before the trip was taken, a requirement of the city's travel policy.
I'm not sure the administrative issues of why it was delayed just a week.
In a statement sent to Fox 45, Mayor Brandon Scott claiming, quote, there may have been some delays in workday pre-authorization due to the city of Baltimore's transition to a new payment system. Regardless, Williams stresses with $144,000 already spent on travel this year alone.
And at some point, they have to say no. The Board of Estimates has to say no. And not just one time, but multiple times, because the city can't keep on spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on travel that just isn't needed.
Now, the board also approved about $2,000 for a retired city employee to take an out-of-town trip this year. Those funds were withdrawn, but it's still unclear why they were ever approved in the first place. Reporting live in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Is outdoor seating unsafe? The answer to that question may depend on where you are seated in Baltimore. Meantime, a possible drunk driving incident has business owners rethinking their outdoor service.
Will the hurricane raise gas prices? President Biden's warning to oil companies against price gouging.
We continue to track Hurricane Ian, the latest on the storm's path and what comes next. We continue to track Hurricane Ian. The storm strengthening to a Category 5, bringing winds of more than 150 miles an hour and intense rain. This is a live look right now at Sunshine Bridge in Tampa, Florida, and the coastline in Bradenton, where you can see the intense waves, storm surges in parts of Florida, which could get up to 18 feet in some areas. Response crews are already getting ready to help those people who are impacted, but won't get to work until the storm starts to calm down. Among those response crews, thousands of volunteers.
Since last week, the American Red Cross has been moving hundreds of trained volunteers from across the country and tens of thousands of relief supplies to Florida in preparation for Ian.
Well, as emergency workers and volunteers move to help those recovering from the storm and those still impacted, because it hasn't gone anywhere yet, blood will be in high demand. The nation's supply of donated blood is already low, and the storm recovery could make that dwindle even more. Liz Bonus has details.
Hey there, everybody. Hello to you. It is something that we all can do as this storm continues to have a ripple effect across the country. The need for blood and blood products never stops. That's why about a week ago, as predictions started to ramp up for Hurricane Ian, blood centers across the country were notified.
In the United States, there's a great history of blood centers kind of banding together.
Dr. David O. of Ohio's Hawksworth Blood Center told me centers like his got the plea for donors.
So the blood is ready when we need it.
And as donors did begin to answer that call,
1 hour of your time means a lifetime for somebody else.
The storm began to set in. It's hard now to predict how the stock of blood they have will stack up.
If we have a case come through the emergency room, we have a trauma level 1, hospital right here, you go through 100 blood products, in a night.
Those products, from platelets for burn victims to whole blood for emergency surgeries, likely to be needed not just in the Florida center of the storm, but in areas that will get its aftermath of wind and rain. A loss of power impacts the ability to store whole blood. Flooding can likely shift patient care to other area hospitals, which may not be as prepared with enough supply.
So there's a little bit of a compatibility issue and availability to use the supply of blood that we have.
So as the stock gets shipped and shared this week, no matter where you live, the backup blood supply is likely to be in need of a backup. The plea right now?
If you're looking for a way to give back and you don't really know what to do, donate blood.
To donate blood, you need to just be healthy, weigh at least 110 pounds, and be at least 17 years old, or in some cases 16 with a parent's permission. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
We are continuing to track very powerful Hurricane Ian as that now moves onshore in Florida, very gradually weakening, but the worst of the impacts happening actually right now. You can see it on radar. If I put this into motion, you can see that storm is just rotating onshore, the rotation pulling all that ocean water in along with it, along with the very strong winds. That means all the impacts are being felt currently. The very dangerous storm surge. Water is rising along the coast, and that is causing destruction there, along with some strong winds. Hurricane force winds in some spots. That means winds topping 100 miles an hour. Plus, you see all these bright colors here on the radar? Yeah, that's the really heavy rain. That's also adding to the issues there. The storm still producing max sustained winds of 140 miles an hour, still keeping it at a Category 4 in strength. Storm surge, the #1 issue, the most deadly issue we see. This has to do with all that water getting shoved up against the coast, up to 12, 18 feet in some locations. That's just incredible, and that's what's going to cause destruction there. And then the rainfall on top of that, 10 to 15 inches in some spots. So flooding will be underway, not only along the coast, but even central parts of Florida, because that's where the storm is headed. Still is a Category 1 hurricane. It eventually weakens to a tropical storm as it moves offshore from Florida by the end of the day tomorrow, but then it wraps around and heads towards the southeast as a tropical storm, and impacts will be felt across the Carolinas by week's end. Although this storm will weaken to a remnant low, we'll eventually feel the impacts, and that's going to be in the form of some rain. So the strongest impacts felt for our neighbors to the south in Florida, of course, but eventually this system is headed our way. So here's a look at what it means for us here in Maryland. The rain will arrive on Saturday, steady rainfall at times, and up to 2 inches expected as this system moves through Maryland and through the Northeast. If we track it together, first it crosses over Florida, then it heads towards the southeast. Very heavy rain and strong winds expected there. Then that moisture pushes our way. I think we'll see the first showers arrive by late morning on Saturday. That means anything you want to do outside, knock it out early Saturday morning. After that, a washout of a day. We've got showers ongoing Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, right through Sunday morning. And it doesn't look pretty for the Ravens game on Sunday either. Heaviest rain comes through on Saturday. Not expecting severe weather, fortunately, with this system, but it will be a washout of a day. It's cool, it's rainy through Sunday. I'd have some indoor plans ready to go. And even on Monday, I am tracking a few lingering showers with temperatures in the cool mid-60s. Looks like this system will impact us all the way through early next week. It's not really until midweek next week that we'll dry things out and say goodbye to what's left of Ian. But at that point, looks like fall is here to stay, guys. We'll see lows in the low 50s each morning and highs only in the upper 60s. Mary, Kai.
Thank you. A crisis in the classroom as hundreds of Baltimore City students are missing in action from class. We talk with a local leader on what needs to be done to get kids into school. And Hurricane Ian continues to surge across Florida, as Amy was just saying, quickly making its way north. A look at the conditions from the communities the storm is impacting right now. In tonight's top stories, the president calling out gas companies, saying they should not use the hurricane hitting Florida as an excuse to raise gas prices. President Biden says he's concerned oil companies may hike prices, claiming shipping routes or the country's oil supply are being impacted by the storm.
Do not, let me repeat, do not use this as an excuse to raise gasoline prices or gouge the American people. If gas companies try to use this storm to raise prices at the pump, I will ask officials to look into whether price gouging is going on.
Well, because Florida is not a major producer or refiner, the storm doesn't appear to be a risk to the nation's oil supply. President Biden believes the industry keeps production low during high demand times to pad profit levels. Oil executives say regulations and opposition to investments to blame for high gas prices. Well, many Puerto Ricans remain without power 10 days after Hurricane Fiona knocked out the island's energy grid. That included just under 348,000 customers as of this morning. Fiona knocked out power to all of the island when the storm hit. FEMA says some areas of the territory saw nearly 30 inches of rainfall. Well, children not showing up to class. Frustration from a local leader who says enough isn't being done to keep them in school. An outdoor dining area shut down early by a suspected drunk driver. The safety concerns tonight. And life-threatening storm surges, 100-mile-per-hour winds and torrential rain. The latest on Hurricane Ian when we get back.
Hurricane Ian is making landfall, pounding Florida's coast with storm surge, heavy rain, and sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. This is a live look at Sunshine Bridge in Tampa. That's on the left side of your screen, and coastline area of Miami on the right side. Those areas are getting hit by the storm. We have team coverage right now on the storm. Fox 45's Megan Gillen is in Tampa, bringing us the latest conditions.
That's right. And meteorologist Amy Aronson looking ahead to how the storm might impact us here in Maryland. But first, Stephen Quinn is in Sarasota with the conditions there. He is live for us tonight. Stephen, we can barely see you.
The conditions are certainly hot, humid, and cameras don't always play well with those. But amazingly, we're still 35 miles to the south, or rather to the north, of where this eye wall is sliding across Florida's peninsula. And even with that said, though, still wind and rain is a heavy concern. So much so, the National Weather Service issuing an emergency wind warning for where we are right now. It is strong enough that it is a major concern for the people here in the path of the effects of this hurricane. The streets of Sarasota are quiet today as Hurricane Ian inches up the west coast of the Florida Peninsula. It appears this stretch of coastline will be spared the devastating storm surge now being seen to its south. But the effects of Ian were already having an impact. As the winds picked up this afternoon, county officials pulled emergency vehicles off the streets. Those who stayed behind are on their own tonight. Some choosing to go to public schools in the county, many of which have been converted into shelters.
Everyone is still concerned, irrespective of whether it's hitting your community directly or your neighbor's community. It's still affecting the region and our community. So, but everybody here is upbeat. All of our employees, staff, etc., are upbeat.
And they have another reason to be upbeat right now. That's because where we are here in Sarasota, the power is still on. It is undoubtedly not the case to our south, which saw a direct hit from this catastrophic hurricane, a Category 4 major hurricane. And so there are many people who are dealing with flooding, but also in the dark. And the governor here in Florida says that right now there are 42,000 linemen in the state of Florida. They're waiting for this storm to pass so that they can get to work. The impacts undoubtedly are going to be felt for days down here. Reporting live in Sarasota, Stephen Quinn.
Stephen, thank you. Well, leading up to the hurricane making landfall today, Tampa Bay braced for the worst. Megan Gillen is there now as the impacts are being felt.
The wind and rain right now ahead of landfall, really a roller coaster, sometimes very strong, sometimes a little calmer. We're just outside Tampa General Hospital where over the last 24 hours we've been watching crews put up these giant shields. Actually, look at this, bolting them into the concrete here to make sure that the patient and the staff inside are protected in case there is a strong storm surge. Originally they were forecasting about 12 feet, now looking a little better here, about 6 feet, but still concerning for folks who live and work in this area, especially when you've got a hospital that sits waterfront. We've been talking to a lot of people out in the midst of this. We've got Alex and Chris who are actually working in all of this, making sure the grounds of the hospital are safe. How are you doing out here?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
So you guys don't have much cover over you. Are you feeling all right? What are you going to do as this storm picks up?
Nothing. The winds are really the big factor of it because it's pretty cold and I don't have a jacket. But other than that, it's pretty good. The rain's being easy. So far, we haven't got a brunt of it, so it's real easy. Calm before the storm. We're just hoping it doesn't get worse than this.
And you guys have been so optimistic, smiling and happy. You know, how are you feeling? Are you nervous? We've been talking about the last time that this happened, really, people pointing to Charlie back in 2004.
That's the last time I'm aware of that we've had a close, strong storm. I mean, I'm a little nervous, but, you know, putting on a good front to help ensure, you know, we keep things smooth here at the hospital.
And obviously you guys are working hard, but I'm sure as this bears down on us here in the coming hours, you're going to have to go inside.
Yes. Yeah. Call us all up inside. Luckily we have the aqua fence. It's supposed to keep the water out.
Yep.
And we're just hoping. I'm from Miami, so this is really easy so far. I'm just hoping it stays like this.
Well, we hope you guys stay safe. Thanks for talking with us here today. We mentioned this hospital waterfront property. Check this out here. Look at this. You see the bridge, obviously the water right below that. We're hearing a lot of mandatory evacuations were underway over the past few days, and especially in the low-lying areas like this. If you haven't already left, likely too late. Yesterday we were at a gas station that was actually out of gas, and now it's hunker down time as the wind, the rain picks up, and we wait to see what impact Ian makes here in Tampa Bay. I'm Megan Gilland reporting.
And meteorologist Amy Aronson joins us now with the latest on the storm's path.
That's right. Amy, what can we expect throughout the rest of the night?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to start to weaken eventually, but it's been a very slow process. It is still considered Category 4 in strength. It hasn't lost much of its strength just yet, still producing max sustained winds of 140 miles an hour. You'll notice that that center of the storm, the clear circle of the storm, has moved onshore. The strongest winds are circulating around that. I've seen reports topping 100 miles an hour, and it is traveling northeastward right now at about 8 miles an hour. As it continues to move across Florida, yes, it will gradually weaken because it's no longer getting its support, its fuel from the warm waters of the ocean. Here's a look at some of the peak wind gusts. You'll notice near Tampa, 60 miles an hour. The strongest one I'm seeing is right between Port Charlotte and Cape Coral, 123 miles an hour. And yes, it does rank as one of the top 5 strongest hurricanes based on wind speeds. You'll notice on the list here, it's actually tied for number 5. At its landfall, it had a max sustained wind of 150 miles an hour. Now, coming up in about 15 minutes, I've got an updated look of its track, and I'll let you know exactly what this storm eventually means for us right here in Maryland. Mary, Kai?
Amy, thank you. In a city in crisis, a Baltimore restaurant ends outdoor dining season early. Now, that decision came after a suspected drunk driver slammed into barriers outside the restaurant. Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live right now in the Station North neighborhood with the latest. Amy?
Yeah, Kai, you can still see some of that damage here outside of a Foraged Eatery. The restaurant owner just telling me he's thankful no customers were here eating when it happened. Chef and owner of the restaurant, Chris Amendola, telling me this happened sometime overnight, Friday into Saturday, and when he came into work the next morning, he was pretty shocked to see the mess left behind. The restaurant says these barriers were set up by the neighborhood's Central Baltimore Partnership as a way to increase seating capacity and facilitate outdoor dining during the pandemic. So far tonight, Baltimore police have not responded to questions about any arrests or a suspect vehicle.
It's really about the drunk drivers. You know, somebody late night drinking and driving. If anything, you know, it's good to see that those barriers, you know, did what they were supposed to do and protected the tables.
Okay, I love that area out there. A lot of places to eat. Foraged, almost just to your left, and then Tapas Teatro just behind you with the Charles Theater. And I see the diners out there. Has this ever happened before?
Yep. So he mentioned that he believes that something like this has happened here before on this street, but we do know this has definitely happened at least twice in Federal Hill because of how popular these parklets became during the pandemic. Back in the early days of the pandemic, back in October 2020, a driver drove straight through the outdoor seating at Federal Hill's Sobo Cafe, and then a month later, another destructive driver was caught on camera, also at Fed Hill's Blue Agave. It's a reminder of the potential danger of these parklets set up so close to the road, similar to what happened here in Station North over the weekend. But even so, Foraged tells me it is hoping to replace these barriers. They'd love to be able to do outdoor dining again. They said maybe by the spring. We've linked you to a fundraising opportunity to help them rebuild. That's up on our website right now, foxbaltimore.com. Kai, back to you.
Well, a crisis in the classroom. Hundreds of Baltimore City school students are not showing up to class. Some of them haven't been there all year. Fox 45's Patrice Sanders spoke with a local pastor who says the city isn't doing enough to get them in school.
1 month into the new school year, more than 1,000 Baltimore City students are missing from class. Now, these are students who have never shown up or who have 10+ days of consecutive absences. The school district is trying to track them down, not for punishment, but to help get them back on track and into the classroom. A school spokesperson said there's no one reason they're missing. It's a variety of reasons, from homelessness to a parent's loss of a job to poverty, even trauma. Longtime Baltimore resident Pastor P.M. Smith says parents have to be involved in their child's education, but he also points fingers at the schools for their latest effort.
Number one, a teacher can only deal with the student that comes from the home. Number two, a teacher cannot teach a young person who's absent and not in the building. Number three, I'm saying to you, there's a motive on behalf of the schools to find these students at this time because they've monetized these young people. They're worth $21,000 this year. Now, my suggestion, beyond the parental failures, the family failures to put a high value on education, if you care about your kid, take them out of the public school system, vote for school choice.
Enrollment numbers for the district are due by this Friday, so those missing students could also impact the funding for the district. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
Well, tonight at 10 o'clock, Project Baltimore investigates why Baltimore County is seeing a spike in absenteeism and what the school system is doing about it.
No, there is no easy solution. We don't like prosecuting. Judges don't like putting in jail. And even if you do put in jail, the hammer is not very big. And in fact, it is not much of an incentive at all when it comes to sending the kids to school.
Tonight at 10 o'clock, Project Baltimore investigates why Baltimore County is seeing a spike in chronic absenteeism and what the school system is doing about it. Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters, and we're committed to investigating any problems that your kids run into this year. You can call our news tip line at 410-467-5595. You can also send us an email at news@foxbaltimore.com or chime in your pictures and videos on the Fox 45 News app.
Tensions over TikTok. I'm Christine Frizzell in Washington, where battles are brewing over the social media giant's negotiations with the White House.
And we have continuing coverage on the path of Hurricane Ian, the latest on the storm's movement and when Maryland could be impacted. Negotiations are taking place between the Biden administration and TikTok. Some say it's a question of national security. National correspondent Christine Frizzell brings us up to speed.
I'm a bad boy.
It is a delicate dance between one of the world's most popular social media apps and the national security of the United States. TikTok now in negotiations with the White House to continue to operate in the country if it makes some changes in light of accusations it has for years collected and stored Americans' data. A TikTok executive making this admission a few weeks ago.
We do have Chinese engineers based in China. We have Chinese employees who have accessed data.
For now, very few details have emerged about these negotiations between TikTok and the White House. TikTok has confirmed that 100% of U.S. user data is now routed through Oracle, an American company. But there are some in Congress who say there should be no deal if it doesn't include the outright sale of TikTok by China-based parent company ByteDance.
ByteDance is a massive conglomerate. It's huge. It's a huge multinational corporation.
And so, of course, the Chinese Communist Party has control of it, just like they have control of every other industry. I mean, that's what it means to have a state-run economy.
It's one reason former President Trump tried to ban the app, an effort blocked by U.S. courts. In the United States alone, there are 80 million TikTok users, the average age 16 to 24 years old. And a top concern the Department of Justice says it will address is privacy. What data are collected, where it's stored, and who can access it.
They are gobbling up data about American citizens. And we're talking about millions and millions of people that now the CCP has access to so that they can use it for information warfare, so they can use it for cyber attacks.
Allegations denied by TikTok, a company that continues to expand and grow at a time other social media apps struggle to keep up. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Well, we are continuing to monitor Hurricane Ian as all kinds of video is coming in on Twitter tonight and other social media accounts. I'm going to show you this one here. This is a tweet coming out of Fort Myers of a roof just being ripped off of a home there. The wind so powerful as the rain continues to come down there as well. We're getting a lot of videos out of Fort Myers right now. This video here shows the flamingos evacuated to the bathroom at the Sunken Gardens. That's in St. Pete in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. You can see them hanging out there. Here's another video here. This is coming out of Southwest Florida, Fort Myers Beach. It says houses are destroyed. Some are floating away as that eye wall was hammering that area of Florida. You can see, look how high that water is on some of those buildings there. We can only hope that everyone has heeded the warning and evacuated. And then this here, coming out of Bonita Beach, Florida, a daring rescue. It says a Good Samaritan. You can see he's heading over here to rescue this cat that was stuck there, perched on top of an air conditioner as that water is flooding beneath him. So thankfully, it looks like he did rescue that cat there in Fort Myers. We'll continue to keep an eye on these things and bring you those images as they come in throughout the evening. Kai?
All right, Maxine, thank you. And meteorologist Amy Aronson is here right now with the very latest potential impact of the storm. Amy, we both have covered these things. Maxine lived in Florida, so she's covered these storms. I can't remember a storm in recent memory where that storm surge has come on shore so quickly, so fast.
Yeah, and it's one of these deadly threats. We say it's the most common, or I guess causes the highest amount of deaths weather-related because it is so powerful and it rushes in so fast. It's worse than just regular flash flooding. To put it kind of in perspective, worse than heat, worse than tornadoes. So yeah, it is unfortunately a top killer, and we don't like to see that happen, but that's exactly what's happening right now. We can see that storm just hitting at the right spot in Florida. Of course, it is causing that dangerous storm surge up to a foot, even more than that in some locations. The storm has officially made landfall. That happened at 3:05. So now it is starting to weaken, but it's going to be a slow process. And that storm surge continues right now because we've got really high winds right around the center of the storm that's shoving all that ocean water up against the shoreline. And that's resulting in that rushing water and the flooding that we're seeing in all the clips coming in. And here's a look at that peak storm surge forecast. Of course, this is already underway, but it looks like the highest is the area highlighted in purple there, 12 to 18 feet in some locations. And you can see the result. It's enough to float away a home. And then we've got rain on top of it, 10 to 15 inches, not only for coastal communities, but even spread across central parts of the state as Ian heads that direction next. And then I thought this was interesting. I pulled up our power outage map, and you can see where the storm is right now. The dark reds, that's where the highest amounts of power outages are being seen, topping 100,000, 200,000 in some of the spots, the communities that are being most impacted right now. And eventually, I think we're going to see some of that dark red appear all across the state in the path of that storm as it travels that way. Even as it heads across central parts of the state, still holding on to some strength. It's a Category 1 storm. It's not until late Thursday that it weakens to a tropical storm as it moves back offshore, but then it heads towards the southeast as a tropical storm. And that's where it's eventually going to weaken to a remnant low before it heads our way over the weekend. Here's a look at it on the weather map. Of course, this is stealing the show right now, taking all the attention, and that's the main weather maker across the country. That's what's eventually going to head our way. Right now, we're in the clear. Feels very fall-like. Looks nice out there. We'll stay that way for another day tomorrow with highs near 70. But that rain arrives just in time for the weekend on Saturday. And at that point, I'm tracking some steady rainfall at times, actually up to 2 inches in some spots by the end of the weekend. And Future Scan shows it heading our direction. First, it moves across Florida, most of the impacts being felt there. Tropical storm force impacts being felt across the southeast. And then here comes the rain for us here in Maryland, arriving by 11 a.m. on Saturday. And then it doesn't stop. Saturday's a washout of a day, steady rain pretty much all day long, and then on and off showers will continue on Sunday. Quick look ahead at how that system impacts us. Steady rain on Saturday, scattered showers Sunday, actually into Monday, with temperatures staying in the very cool mid-60s. Looks like it's not until next week that it clears out of here. Now, in just a couple of minutes, we'll take a more detailed look at your weekend forecast. Kai?
Amy, thank you. New tonight at 6 o'clock on Fox 45. You probably use them on your phone every day. But emojis are gaining popularity in the drug trade. Why children could be the target. An injury update for Ravens nose tackle Michael Pierce's torn bicep. Why there's not a chance he's done yet. Ahead on Sports Unlimited.
He's deep into the majors and trying to help the Orioles in their postseason push. But Gunnar Henderson picked up a national honor from Baseball America, named Minor League Player of the Year. Henderson batted just under 300 with 19 home runs between games in Bowie and Norfolk. The 21-year-old infielder made his O's debut August 31st. He's the second Oriole to get this honor. Matt Wieters, the other, back in 2008. Michael Pierce's second tour with the Ravens may be cut short. John Harbaugh confirmed Pierce tore his biceps against the Patriots. The nose tackle will either have surgery and be shut down or rehab and try to play through it. Right now, that decision has not been made, and Harbaugh said it is up to Pierce. Behind the D-line, the Ravens added much-needed talent and depth this week at pass rusher. Jason Pierre-Paul made his practice debut at the Ravens, number 4, along with practice squad addition Jeremiah Atachu. JPP and his 91 career sacks in year 13 could be on the field as soon as Sunday to attack Josh Allen and the Bills.
He looked good today. We didn't take. He took a number of reps. I don't think he took every rep, but he took as many reps out there as we had for him, and he looked good. We'll see the tape. The process is to get him out there as fast as we can. So we'll shoot for this week. We'll see.
Not to add more fuel to the fire that for some reason there are Lamar Jackson haters, but Jackson was not named AFC Offensive Player of the Week after his 5-touchdown performance at New England. Instead, it went to Jacksonville quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Lawrence tossed 44 more yards with no turnovers and a better rating, but only 3 passing touchdowns and nowhere near Jackson's 107 yards rushing. Makes no sense. Ravens left tackle Ronnie Stanley, a full participant at practice today. That has not happened since week 1 last season. His chances for Sunday tonight when Sports Unlimited continues.
All right, Morgan, thank you. Let's get a final check of our weather right now with meteorologist Amy Aronson. Amy.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look pretty for our weekend, and we can contribute that to what's left of Ian by the time it reaches us. It's going to send us steady rain on Saturday, just a washout of a day. On and off showers will continue on Sunday with temperatures staying in the cool mid and upper 60s. Monday, we wrap up with a few showers. That's actually looking beyond the weekend. Temperatures not changing a whole lot. We'll stay in the mid 60s. Mary, Kai.
Amy, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock, stunning scenes out of Florida. Look how deep this water is already chest high as Hurricane Ian makes landfall. How emergency officials are working to keep Floridians safe and even rescue them. And things get crabby at Chris Field's Crab Feast. Choice words from the 2 men vying to be Maryland's next governor.
Hurricane Ian makes landfall on Florida's west coast. Power outage numbers staggering from wind and flooding. The latest track and weekend washout we could see here as a result.
You know, it starts to bother you after a while being in this neighborhood.
Another violent outburst in the heart of Fells Point. New details on a double shooting and why city leaders are taking aim at Baltimore police. And pinchers out at Chris Field's Crab Feast, the war of words between the 2 men vying to be Maryland's next governor.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
And good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. We're following two big stories tonight as 6 people have been shot in Baltimore City. Alexa Ashwell has the fallout from a double shooting in Fells Point in a few moments. But first, we begin with the path of Hurricane Ian as it makes its way up the Florida coast. And we are taking a live look at the Sunshine Bridge in Tampa. The Category 4 hurricane made landfall just in the past couple of hours. Here's a look at some of the intense video we have seen so far. On the top left, this is Punta Gorda, just north of Fort Myers. Wind gusts topped 120 miles an hour, according to the National Weather Service. Top right, firefighters in the city of Naples had to salvage items from a truck that started to smoke after water got into the electrical equipment. On the bottom left, a look at the eye of the storm as it makes its way north. And on the bottom right, we see the eye wall of the storm approaching. NOAA scientists warning people of what they can expect.
12 to 18 feet of storm surge inundation above ground level. That's 3 times as tall as I am. So that's really an unsurvivable circumstance.
For us, Amy, really dangerous situation for millions of people now.
Yeah, you can really see the power of water with this system. Very strong system, still producing max sustained winds now at 130 miles an hour. But we are starting to see some signs of weakening as it loses that fuel, very warm water, as it moves onshore. But right now, the impacts are ongoing. That includes that very dangerous storm surge, along with heavy rain and very strong hurricane force winds in some spots. Here's a look at the peak wind gusts from the past 24 hours, up to 123 miles per hour. That's just south of Port Charlotte. We've got 82 miles an hour just north of that. So some very strong winds. And it actually puts this system as one of the top 5 strongest hurricanes in recorded history to hit the U.S. based on wind speed alone. You'll notice Ian is actually tied for the 5th spot with max sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. And that was at landfall. Coming up in just about 20 minutes, we'll take a look at the updated track of this storm. And I'll let you know exactly when it arrives and what it means for us right here in Maryland. Mary?
All right, Amy, thank you. And again, some amazing images and pictures coming in right now from social media. Let's take a look at some of them that you're posting, and we appreciate these here right now. Wow, Naples Fire Rescue Department shared this video on Facebook of a fire. Look at that, possibly a transformer right there, folks, on the ground. This one you have to see. This is amazing. This was about an hour or so ago. This is a camera that a station has mounted. It's 6 feet off the ground, and look where the water is. Again, this was an hour and a half ago at least. Rare first-person view of storm surge. This camera 6 feet off the ground on Estero Boulevard in Fort Myers Beach. And Mary and I looked that up earlier to see where Estero was. Great damage here. Video circulating shows houses floating off their foundations in Fort Myers. And one last one to show you. This is just amazing. This is what these storms do. They come in, but they also have a whipping and sucking effect. Video from Matt Tillman of Bayshore in Tampa. The bay in Tampa was literally sucked out, but that water will return eventually. Mary.
Thank you. Our other top story tonight, a man is in critical condition. A woman is in the hospital after police say they were shot early this morning in Fells Point. Alexa Ashwell has the latest.
Baltimore police confirm this man is in grave condition at an area hospital. Police say both he and a woman were shot here on South Broadway, which is lined with shops and businesses. You can see one of the bullet holes here in this store. What investigators haven't said is what they believe led up to this shooting, a motive in the crime. It's the latest violence to unfold here in Fells Point and comes just days before the festival.
A blood-stained sidewalk and a bullet hole.
So the bullet hole is right here. I noticed that when I first came in.
Remnants of a double shooting here on South Broadway Street near Alisana Street in Fells Point. This cell phone video capturing people and medics surrounding at least one of the victims. Baltimore police say officers were called here around 1 Wednesday morning after reports of a shooting. And at the scene, they found a man who had been shot in the head and a 35-year-old woman who had been shot in the arm. The department not yet releasing a motive in the crime. The unanswered questions even more unnerving to people like Jessica, who discovered the bullet hole in the front door where she works.
Yeah, it's really sad and scary, you know.
And also calls this area home.
And it's been a lot going on as far as like violence in this area.
Just last year, surveillance video from this same area captured people running for their lives as someone fired 24 gunshots from Alisana Street. And already this year, at least 6 people have been shot in Fells Point, some of those victims killed, including La Scala restaurant general manager Chesley Patterson and Rodos bouncer husband and father Marco Nunez. Arrests were made in both of those cases. Still, the violence troubling.
You know, it starts to bother you after a while, being in this neighborhood, and you can't walk out your door without anger or violence.
And comes just days before the Fells Point Fun Festival, an annual event that brings hundreds of people to the area. Fox 45 News questioning police about security plans. A spokesperson saying there will be added foot and bike patrols, as well as members of SWAT present. An added presence, people hope, will prompt change.
And hopefully it gets better, you know, so I can wish for it.
You'll notice these gates here in Broadway Square. Police have been using these, putting them out in the summer in response to the violence, shutting down the square early. They're already out ahead of the festival. As for this shooting, police have yet to release any suspect information. No arrests have been made. Reporting in Fells Point, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Police are also still looking for at least 2 shooters after 4 people were shot along Bowley's Lane last night in northeast Baltimore. Police say the shooters fled in a vehicle, but they don't have a description at this time. All 4 victims are recovering. Anybody with information is asked to call Baltimore City Police or Metro Crime Stoppers. Now, Baltimore's ongoing violence is a top concern among city council members. Today, council members pressed Baltimore City Police on their solutions to curbing the violence. Councilman Mark Conway says police response has oftentimes been reactionary, saying it seems like BPD is just shifting resources around instead of fixing its shortages. As of now, efforts from the city are only focused on the Western Police District.
This isn't like giving out Christmas gifts. I want my gift, my Christmas gift. When will everyone get their gift of a perfectly safe neighborhood? I can't say. I would love for that to happen yesterday.
A statement from Mayor Scott's office claims it is misguided to say any neighborhood is taking priority over others. Well, new at 6, Johns Hopkins University's forum on launching an independent police department is going virtual tomorrow. It follows this scene last week when protesters took over the stage and shut down the meeting. Hopkins temporarily shelved the idea in 2020 in the wake of George Floyd protests, but is now moving forward. We will follow tomorrow's virtual meeting and report back to you. Well, in Crisfield, it is time for crabs, clams, and politics. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station went to the Eastern Shore for this story and explains why this is an important stop for those vying to be Maryland's next governor.
There's got to be one dumb crab be hanging around Crisfield,
The annual J. Millard Taw's Crab and Clam Bake in tiny Crisfield on the lower Eastern Shore is about the food, the camaraderie, and it has always been about Maryland politics. Just ask Governor Larry Hogan. He came here as a long-shot candidate in 2014 and left feeling he could win.
I think it's just good to be seen. It's a great political, time. You get out and meet thousands of people from all over the state.
And so, with Marylanders about to elect newcomers to every statewide office for the first time in 100 years, this is once again the place to be seen for candidates and elected officials with all eyes on the nominees for governor. Democrat Wes Moore.
First of all, get some good food and also get a chance to spend time with Marylanders.
And Republican Dan Cox.
It's making sure that they have a representative that says it's about restoring their freedom in Maryland, putting power back in their hands.
Normally, this crab feast is about camaraderie, politicians generally reaching across the aisle for a day of goodwill. Not this year, with Cox and Moore trading sharp barbs.
For example, where my definition of patriotism was leaving my family and going with the 82nd Airborne and leading paratroopers in Afghanistan. And my opponent's definition of patriotism was putting on a baseball cap and asking people to join him as they went to the Capitol to contest a legal election.
He wants to export the Baltimore crime throughout the state. He's against the police. He said not only does he want to defund the police, He wants to indict the system.
My belief in democracy is very different from my opponent.
Why would we believe someone who says he's from Baltimore and he's not?
If the candidates seem a bit crabby towards each other, understand this. Even though Election Day is November 8th, mail-in ballots start going out tomorrow. So votes will be cast as soon as this weekend. In Crisfield, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Hurricane Ian makes landfall today in Florida. Still ahead, the pleas from state officials as millions of people continue to evacuate.
And here's a look at Ian right now. Actually, an extreme wind warning for parts of the area being impacted by that storm as it continues to make landfall. I've got an updated look at the track of the system, and I'll let you know exactly what it means for Maryland in just a couple of minutes.
Well, we continue to follow Hurricane Ian. This is a live look from Live Storm's media chaser Ryan Kerty in Punta Gorda. The nearby airport saw wind gusts reach 124 miles per hour earlier this afternoon. We'll have more on the track and when we will see remnants arrive in just a moment.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
We're learning more about the massive oil leak along 2 Russian pipelines. Both lines were shut down at the time, but they were full of gas. Now, European officials are blaming Russia for intentionally cutting off gas to Europe, but U.S. leaders aren't as quick to point the finger.
The leaks are under investigation. There are initial reports indicating that this may be the result of an attack or some kind of sabotage, but these are initial reports and we haven't confirmed that yet. But if it is confirmed, that's clearly in no one's interest.
Well, analysts worry it sets a precedent for future infrastructure attacks if the United States and NATO don't respond. Mary?
Kai, thank you. Here's our look at today's top trending stories. Number one, Maryland is going to need a new area code sometime soon. And according to the Maryland Public Service Commission, phone numbers are running out in the 240 and 301 area codes, and the state is about to implement area code 227. Those two current codes include parts of 11 Maryland counties, and numbers are expected to run out sometime in the spring of 2023. Number two, Sinai Hospital in Northwest Baltimore is doubling the size of its emergency department. Workers are breaking ground on the $50 million project, allowing for larger patient rooms and a trauma center. Hospital officials say the current emergency department will be open during construction. They expect the project to be done by 2024. Number three, it is the first full week of fall, a beautiful time to see those fall colors, of course. And you're about to see a lot of orange if you go to Valley View Farms. Miss Amelia, the giant pumpkin, recently arrived at the Valley View Farms, weighing in at 2,005 pounds. She's named after the 13-year-old who grew it, taking most of the summer to do so. She is a large lady.
Our guys really go quite a distance to find the biggest pumpkins at pumpkin weigh-offs across the country, but this is a real find. It's one of the prettiest ones we've ever had, and it's lovely to me that it's named after a girl, just 13 years old, that grew this. Probably took her since the middle of May until last weekend to have it ready for us.
What an accomplishment. Great job, Amelia. There's also a contest to guess how many seeds are in the giant pumpkin. Miss Amelia will be on display until October 29th.
We need everyone to heed the warnings of their local officials before, during, and after this storm. These are life-saving messages that simply cannot be ignored.
Well, nearly 3 million people have evacuated the Tampa area as Hurricane Ian makes its way up the Florida Gulf Coast. This is a live look at Hollywood Beach on the Atlantic coast as most of the state is feeling Ian's impact. Thankfully, they aren't getting too much rain. Amy, you're tracking the storm. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I am seeing some signs, at least, of weakening, but it's a gradual process. We're down to max sustained winds now of 130 miles an hour. When it made landfall, they were up to 150. And that's what we'd expect as this storm moves over land. Of course, dangerous impacts continue. Not only are we dealing with storm surge, that's that rushing water moving onshore. We've also got an extreme wind warning posted, plus this flood warning was just expanded here as that heavy rain and the very strong winds continue to move onshore. Here's the most immediate threat right now. We're still dealing with that storm surge up to 12, 18 feet in some locations for the area highlighted in purple there. So that's the most immediate concern, but lots of impacts, lots of very devastating impacts expected. A lot of rain, not only for coastal communities, but also for central parts of the state. 10 to 15 inches in some spots. Flooding will continue to be a concern even as that storm weakens and moves across central parts of Florida before exiting and then heading actually up into the southeast. Power outages are actually starting to pile up. You'll notice the highest amounts now I have highlighted here with the yellow text. We've got over 100,000, 200,000 in some spots for the communities highlighted in that darker red. I think we're going to see that expand in the path of this storm as it continues its journey northeastward. And the National Hurricane Center is expecting it eventually to weaken to a Category 1 hurricane as it moves across central parts of the state, and then eventually a tropical storm as it exits Florida, but not until late tomorrow evening. After that, it curves back into the southeast as a tropical storm. That means impacts will be felt across the Carolinas before it weakens into a remnant low as we get into the weekend. And that's when we're tracking this system. So this is our next weather maker. Won't be a hurricane, won't be a tropical storm, fortunately, by the time it reaches us. But yeah, it will still be a nuisance as we get into our weekend. The worst impacts are expected for our neighbors to the south. So, of course, we're going to keep them in our thoughts. But as Ian heads towards Maryland this weekend, the rain arrives starting on Saturday late morning. I'm tracking steady rain at times this weekend. Actually, we could pick up to 2 inches in some spots by the end of the weekend. And FutureScan gives us a better idea of timing. First, it shows it moving offshore Florida by late Thursday, then heading into the southeast on Friday, continuing to weaken there. Fortunately for us, I don't think this is bringing us a severe weather threat, just spreading some showers our way, starting late morning on Saturday and then continuing all day. Soaking rain expected through Saturday evening, Saturday night, even through Sunday morning. At that point, just more scattered showers to close out the weekend. And here's a look at what this means for us over the weekend. Steady rain by Saturday with temperatures in the cooler mid-60s. By Sunday, I am tracking on and off showers with highs remaining in the upper 60s. Even on Monday, few lingering showers as the system slowly pushes out of here. It's also going to stay quite cool with highs in the mid-60s. Now, in a couple of minutes, I will show you exactly when this system gets out of here, and we'll take a look ahead in our exclusive 10-day forecast. Mary?
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
While Hurricane Ian tops the day's weather talk, Las Vegas is also getting its own dose of slow-moving storms, complete with heavy rain, dangerous lightning, and the risk of flash flooding. And a reporter from Vegas captured this video from home on her phone, along with a surprise. Elsewhere, here's a more peaceful sky, a sunset over Asheville, North Carolina.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Twitter.
Well, you probably see them on your phone all the time, but emojis are taking on a new meaning in the drug trade. Why children may be the target of this new wave. And look at those waves cresting below the Sunshine Bridge just south of Tampa. We'll continue to follow Ian's movement throughout the night. Well, something we use on our phones every day is starting to take on a more illicit purpose. In tonight's Assignment America, Ricardo Lewis from our Sinclair sister station in Austin, Texas, explains.
These look like innocent emojis we all use when we're texting, but for some, they're codes to buy or sell drugs.
Kids are smart, right? They're going to find a way around getting caught, right?
Deputy Anthony Hippolito with the Hays County Sheriff's Office says during investigations, not only are young people using social media, but they don't use specific words.
Parents aren't really up to date on what kids are saying and how they're using social media. It continues to evolve.
In the new age of social media, police officers are also trying to catch up.
We seem to always be a step behind, but we're trying to do our best to learn.
The U.S. Department of Justice and Drug Enforcement Administration put out this drug decoder to give parents and educators a better sense of how the emojis are being used. These are just some of the dealer signals, and here's how you would ask for meth or cocaine. Want a large batch? Just text a cookie emoji.
Across the country, a nearly invisible poison, fentanyl,
is devastating families and communities. Yet many young people who take fentanyl don't even know that they're taking it.
The DEA and its law enforcement partners seized more than 10 million fentanyl pills and approximately 980 pounds of fentanyl powder between May and September through the One Pill Can Kill initiative. The DOJ is vowing to disrupt and dismantle the cartels smuggling the drugs in.
We are doing everything in our power to get these deadly drugs off the streets and to save lives.
And here's a look at that 10-day forecast. We'll stay dry for the next 2 days. Very fall-like. Some cool mornings coming up and some cool afternoons. Low 70s tomorrow, upper 60s on Friday. And then here comes what's left of Ian. It arrives here by late Saturday morning. It's a washout of a day Saturday. Steady rain at times, followed by scattered showers on Sunday. And then some spotty showers will actually linger through Monday. It's not until Tuesday into Wednesday that we'll start to dry things out. Welcome back some sunshine. But after that, looks like our fall-like temperatures are here to stay with highs in the upper 60s and low 70s all the way through the following weekend. Back to you.
Thank you. Our Megan Gillen is down in Tampa covering Hurricane Ian all week. This was the scene outside her hotel earlier this afternoon as rain started to pick up. Follow along for live reports throughout tomorrow morning starting at 4:30 on the Fox 45 Morning News. Well, finally tonight, an incredible honor for Johns Hopkins scientist Lauren Gardner. She's taking home this year's Lasker Award for Public Service for her role in creating a website to track COVID cases worldwide. She is the one who created the website in January of 2020, and the Lasker Foundation credits her for setting a new standard for public health data science. Gardner takes home a $250,000 prize for her work. Well, that's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud is next. We'll see you back here for the news at 10 tonight. Have a good night and thanks for watching.